today, yeah, okay, I'm a little bit late from Halloween, but you all know I'm a witch, and witches get busy around the Halloween period. But I just wanted to talk about something that's close to my heart here. I'm going to do it in 2 videos, and I'm going to talk about writing paranormal. Back in my world here, you see. So, obviously, paranormal is a wide genre, and that can include paranormal. Kind of gets lumped in with sci-fi sometimes, but paranormal would include lots of different mythological creatures. It can include vampires, werewolves, shifters, all the things that I include in it, ghosts, demons, aliens, everything, all kind of bundles in on the paranormal world. So I'm going to talk about a little thing about the problem with paranormal stories and how to avoid them if you decide you want to write one. The first big thing is idiot characters. Yeah, we've all been there. You know the type. The same as we have like in a horror movie. They're the ones that just go like la 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 into danger without the slightest hint of self-preservation. They actively taunt the entity. They push their luck. They make a point of trying to see some action. They are the ones that will choose to spend the night in a haunted house. They will seek out and buy a haunted doll or a cursed object. They will summon the worst kind of demon that they have just read about in a weird old book that they found in the attic. And then they're shocked that things start to go to shit. And you know what's worse? When they do all of this bullshit and then they refuse to believe that any of it is happening. The idiot skeptic, we should call them. They will fucking full on see a floating spectre and will be searching around like Scooby-Doo style, looking for like hologram projectors or a high school student in a bad sheet. They will never believe their own eyes or their own instincts. And even when like a high-class demon appears in their hastily drawn circle, they'll still, to its face, tell it that it doesn't exist. Which to me is just a bit rude. They are the type of character that will go to a witch, ask them for a spell, and then when it starts to work, they'll call it a coincidence and refuse to pay the witch. Honestly, they are just begging to get their ass cursed, and I would have zero sympathy for them. Another thing that is a problem in paranormal is not messing with the mythology. And by this, I mean copying the standard version of a supernatural creature down to the last detail. Sure, stick with the classics. We all know how vampires went when they suddenly managed to go vegan and start to sparkle. But that doesn't mean that you can't branch out a little or freshen things up a bit. Mythology is ever changing. It's ever evolving, and your work should do that too if you want to keep it feeling fresh and new. Create something that will attract more readers. Every myth has its basis in a story, and that means that someone wrote, or in most cases verbally told, the story. They will have added their own little twists and embellishments, and over time that has all been added to and become canon for these creatures. But if you even look at Greek mythology, you'll see that sometimes there's 3 or 4 versions of one particular myth, so nothing has to stay the same. Take vampires, for example, okay? Bram Stoker did them a solid when it came to his work in Dracula, but he took from mythology too. He mixed different regions and different cultural ideas and different beliefs to make his version of the vampire. But now, that is pretty much all that people know. It's pretty much the industry standard when it comes to fanged ones. And that's cool. It's really cool. But you have a brain and you are allowed to use it. Just going on Google and using the first things that you find when it comes to vampires or shapeshifters or something is just lazy writing. And talking of Googling, here comes my next one. What the fuck is up with characters that can hit the net and find the answers to their problems on the first website that they find? Oh, that house is haunted. I'm going to be able to put the address into Google and find out its entire dark history in 10 seconds flat on the conveniently named Haunted Houses of the City website. They'll be able to type in the town name on the website of the local newspaper and instantly find an article from 60 years ago about the ditched prom date that got hit by a car while walking home. They will be able to type in a demon's name and find an entire ritual dedicated to trapping and exorcising them, as well as a convenient mail-order kit to make it even easier. What bullshit. Have you tried looking up some of that shit for yourself? I have, and it's not easy at all. I actually run a ghost tour in my town, one of the reasons why I was busy on Halloween night, and I researched all of the ghost stories. I could have just googled it, but there is no bloody history websites. You know, there's no convenient articles for deaths and illegitimate children of landowners, because it's just not out there. Most local news sites get updated regularly and they drop older stuff. Plus, they rarely encourage the belief in ghosts and legends. And come on, anyone that thinks that you can believe everything you read on the internet is a total dumbass. Nothing in life is that easy, and it shouldn't be for your characters either. Don't make shit convenient and unbelievable just to make your job as a writer easier. You should be researching everything that you write, so you should know that it's not just a simple search, but like a deep dive that can last days and involve clicking and following links from one side of the internet to the other. So be realistic, damn it. I mean, it's not only is it unrealistic, it's also boring. Remember my videos on conflict? Your characters should try and fail sometimes. That is allowed, you know. Giving them everything they need is just cheap. Let's move on to a personal hatred of mine, and that's when people get overly creative with the names of their beings. We can't just call them zombies. We have to call them the infected, legions of the dead, wandering souls, the cruising corpses, anything but a zombie. Vampires aren't just vampires. They are the blooded, the dead ones, the immortal blood slaves, the sunless ones, all the pretentious names under their non-existent sun. And all because you as a writer want to be different. Okay, so it's cool to want to branch out and to make something your own. I get that. But do you have to be such a knob about it? If I picked up a book where the vampires were called the Dark Children, I'd shove it back on the shelf and I'd walk away, because that would be all that I needed to know about it. I'd just know. And yes, I probably shouldn't judge like that, but let's be real. We do judge books by their covers, and I definitely judge them by the way that things are named and worded. It is natural to judge, because we all have opinions on what we like and what we don't. I can't stand pretentious, try too hard writers that come off as thinking that they're better than everyone else. And that's one of the things that I use a marker to know if I'll get on with a story or not. It's harsh, but it's true. Writers often do this for a few reasons, but be it that they want to show that they have like fresh new ideas, that they are different than everyone else that's come before them, that they are beyond the genre, and that they are clever and more intelligent than others. But in reality, it just comes off as pretentious and annoying, like they believe that they're better than everybody else. They can piss off. They might also do it because they're a bit embarrassed to be using a creature that's already established, or that they feel that they're better than just writing a normal vampire. They might feel like that they're going to be judged as just another vampire writer, so they try to hide it or to like spice it up a little bit. They don't want to admit that they are writing a vampire romance, so they will dress it up in a pretty word bow and hope that it gets ignored and glossed over. They want to stand out from the crowd and think that they can pull in new readers by promising them something different and unique, when really it's not. It's just a bit of a cheap trick, really. Okay, let's move on before I go off on like an epic rant that will last all week. Let's talk about the secret supernatural. Now, you might not know where I'm going with this, but as soon as I say it and as soon as I explain it, you'll have like a light bulb moment and you'll totally get why it pisses me off. I'm talking about the protagonist or the main character that for some bullshit reason or another doesn't know that they are in fact a paranormal creature. Ah, now I see you nodding out there. You're starting to get it. Well, you know, where something happens to them and that either reveals or like kicks off their abilities. It could be their 18th birthday, the first time that they kill someone, a certain full moon, a lunar eclipse nearing them reaching puberty. Usually they have no idea that they are special in some way. They could have been abandoned as a child and adopted, so they never knew their true heritage. It could have been that they're from a single parent family and the absent parent is the paranormal creature and it's been passed on by blood. It could be that they were cursed or attacked as a child and it only shows themselves when they mature, which that's just creepy in itself really, isn't it? Another creepy one is when they are born paranormal but only find out or develop their powers when they meet their mate and have sex for the first time. It's all about that magic dick, people. Then we fall into the realm of blood ancestors, where they may have been a witch in the family and it's not until they attempt to spell or accidentally summon a demon that they find out that they are the chosen one and they must battle to save the world. Or they have a fairy grandfather that's passed down some psychic gifts with his fancy fairy sperm. And now the MC is the most beautiful model in the world with allure and glamour for days. All bitching aside, this can be a very good plotline to do and a way of creating a very interesting story, especially if it shows the main character having to navigate and understand a new and very different world to the one that they're used to. Please. Enough of the bullshit excuses for why it happened. Enough of the crap that is overdone and overused. Come up with something original for the love of the gods. Make it interesting or avoid it altogether. Another thing I really want to enforce is doing your research into the creature that you want to include in your story. And that includes folklore from around the area in which you wish to set your story. It sounds so simple to write a supernatural or a paranormal story, but if you don't put in the groundwork, you'll end up with an unbelievable story. And even though it's fantasy, you still need that element of believability to allow your readers to immerse themselves in the story and the world that you're creating. Take ghosts, for example, okay, because they are quite common and an easy one to start off with. Imagine that you're reading a story where there is a Roman soldier haunting a house in Carolina. Okay, with me so far? The resident sees this soldier out of the corner of her eye. He's moving around her house as if he owns a joint, and it's unsettling for her. Can get that. He has a bloody wound in his abdomen and has obviously been stabbed or slashed there, which leads us to believe that he was killed in battle. The resident does some research and concludes that he's a famous Roman general that died thousands of years ago after a battle. With me so far? That sounds like it could work, right? Wrong. Let's first look at the area. Carolina is obviously in America. And while some scientists claim that they have found evidence that ancient Romans arrived in North America more than 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus, there is very little information on it. There were no battles there. It's very unlikely that a ghost would be haunting a house there. Okay. Now, let's look at the house itself. Most historical houses in America are no more than a few hundred years old at the most, based purely on how they are built and the way the land was a few centuries ago. So, the house itself could not possibly be haunted to the point that a Roman soldier would be familiar enough with it to be like wandering around. Now you have to look at the type of haunting that you're writing. And this is real life facts now. Most mediums and spiritual people will tell you that there are generally only two types of hauntings. Ghosts, which are non-communicative apparitions. This means that they are not sentient and they are not the type of being that we can communicate with at spiritualist centres or during readings. A ghost is just a leftover energy. This usually happens when something high energy or highly emotional happens in a particular building, place or land spot. The energy of that event gets trapped in the area and it basically replayed over and over again like a recording. These ghosts will not interact with the living in any way. They won't move things, they won't make noises, and they will ignore all attempts to contact them because they are not sentient. Now we come to spirits, which are the ones that can and do interact with the living. These are the ones that mediums communicate with to deliver messages from loved ones, and who might move things around the house or make noise. So, the only way that a Roman soldier ghost would be there would be if the building or land was old enough and that there'd been a high energy event that took place. And in Carolina, that is just not possible. So straight away that blows the whole story out of the water. Even if you didn't have the knowledge of ghosts and spirits that I do, most people would find it hard to believe that a Roman soldier would be haunting a 100-year-old house in America. So keep your shit believable. Look at your local law. Look at ghost stories. Look at different types of creatures. Look at how paranormal investigations actually work. So watch videos on how to use the equipment and how investigations are conducted. Look at everything about your story. Research it and make it as accurate as you can before you start writing it. Obviously, I encourage the twisting of myths and the changing of some things to make them a better fit for your story. It can work really, really well. But please, please, please keep it believable and keep it relevant. Another thing I'm going to touch on is diversity in paranormal books. It's great that you've done your research and added so many different species to your books, but do they all have to be cis, white and able-bodied? Do they all have to look entirely human? Can we not have a little variety and inclusion, please? Now that's not to say that everyone is writing this way, but it does seem to be a bit of a default setting. I understand if you don't want to write a romance with characters that aren't mostly humanoid in appearance. We're not writing bestiality here. Well, you might be, but I'm definitely not. But look at the diversity we have in our world. Can you not include that in your books too? Think about your creatures. Think about where they come from and incorporate that. So you've got a tiger shifter. Where are tigers native? What is the predominant race there? All of this needs to be thought about and included. Not everyone has to be able-bodied either. Vampires that have lost limbs before being turned would not grow them back. What if a love interest was wheelchair-bound? What if a love interested was deaf or blind? There is so much you can do to include everybody in the world. Remember that even though it's fantasy, it doesn't mean the world is full of perfect beings. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I might do another video if more questions or observations come up. I didn't go into how to develop tension into your stories or how to create conflict in them, because I've done videos on those topics already and their information can be used to work in any genre. So I focus purely on the creatures and types of paranormal here. I hope that's helped. If you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And until next time, blessed be and happy writing.